Welcome to Mystical Messages. I am Hilary Harley, your podcast host. I am a soul guide and astrologer. Mystical Messages is your podcast gateway to discover and learn about the realm beyond the veil, including all things intuitive, metaphysical, and the healing arts. To learn more about my work or to book a session with me, please visit hilaryharley.com. If you would like to read my monthly forecast, you may find the full written transcript for all astrology episodes on my website. That way, if you hear something and want to re-listen to a forecast or check a date of a cosmic event, you may find it on the written monthly forecast on hilaryharley.com. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel on YouTube. And I am so pleased to bring you my very esteemed colleague, fellow astrologer, Jill Jardine, to break down the astrology for 2026. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you, Hilary. I'm so happy to be here with you, my fellow esteemed colleague, astrologer, to talk about the wild and wacky 2026.
Yes, I know. We're really shifting gears. Before we dive in, I just want to introduce you to listeners. Jill Jardine is a lifelong astrologer and psychic who began studying metaphysics and astrology at age 15. She has a master's in counseling psychology, and since 1991, she has worked as a professional consulting astrologer and therapist. She is also a yogi, and she has studied with esteemed gurus from India, cultivating deep insight into the mind, body, and spirit. Jill is so honored to share her spiritual gifts. She hosts the internationally acclaimed podcast, Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine. And she has maintained a thriving astrological and healing practice for many years on Boston's South Shore. And if you want to book a session, an astrology session, or find out about classes she's teaching, or tune in to Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine, her podcast, you can go to Jill Jardine. It's JILLJARDINE. Jill Jardine Astrology, all one word, JillJardineAstrology.com. So let's get cooking. Lay it on me. What is your take?
Okay, so I'm actually quite excited about 2026 because we're going to be shifting out of this heavily laden Earth outer planet energy and water outer planet energy into fire and air. So we're having an elemental shift. We did have a little taste of it in 2025, but I think not enough to get our groove on. So I'm very excited. I mean, I'm an Aquarian, so I'm kind of excited that we're going to have this push into the Aquarian age. And so I think the year is really about a lot of changes. Air and fire. Now, air is mental body. So people are going to be brimming with ideas. There's going to be a lot of intellectual or creative energy coming through. And then fire is creativity and new beginnings. So the keynotes are the fact we're going to have Pluto going through Aquarius in early degrees. That will be joined by Saturn and Neptune in Aries, which we did have last summer going on for 2 months. And then Uranus in early Gemini will get into the show in late April. So there's going to be all these harmonics between the planets, the outer planets in fire and air. And then we're going to have Jupiter jump into Leo at the end of June. So it's going to be, if you have anything in the early degree of air or fire, I've been telling all my clients, you're certainly going to be in the cosmic blender, which I think is a good thing. The problem with the last years of Taurian energy coming from Uranus, and then the Pisces energy coming from Saturn, and Neptune and Pisces, and then we had Pluto and Capricorn. It was kind of heavy. It was really
Yes.
heavy. It was a lot of working through old energies, the end of the Piscean age with all these planets leaving Pisces. I mean, it's been a transition since the 60s into the Aquarian age, but I think Pluto as the last outer planet to get into Aquarius now and fully ensconced till 2044. We're in it. But that the heaviness of the last few years and the density, I think, of the collective consciousness due to the water and the earth has been sort of a hindrance to those of us who are trying to bring in a higher consciousness
Yeah.
to the planet.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can just feel the little preview of coming attractions that we got a taste of mid 2025, where it was, Saturn and Neptune stuck their toes into Aries and Uranus stuck its toe into Gemini, and it was like, oh, I can't wait for this.
Yeah, it was really fun. The 2 months when they were all there was June and July, July and August. June they started to get into it, and man, I had a blast. So I was like,
Hmm.
"Hey." But the thing is that people need to understand when we're giving these astrological updates, we've got our personal astrology, so it's always good to know your sun sign. Every sign is going to be affected though by this new energy next year. Everybody, doesn't matter what your zodiac sign is. So we have the personal impact to our astrology, but then it's the collective. And that's what we have been concerned about for the last years
Right.
because we're a little bit behind schedule as far as what my projection was back in, we didn't make it in 2012 at the end of the Mayan calendar there on December 21st, 2012, which is now 13 years ago. And so, as I had predicted that 2020, with the cluster of Capricorn planets, there would be a collective conundrum, which we experienced as COVID when it hit. So, all these things have forced the consciousness to shift. And now I do believe that 2026 is going to get people on track. It's like what we used to say, evolve or dissolve. And this is the opportunity. So I'll jump into the first 6 months and what I see and sort of the big picture items. I won't be getting in the weeds with the smaller transits, but
Okay.
I'll talk about
Awesome.
some of these outer planet shifts, because I think those are the big um, things that we will all feel when, for instance, when Neptune finally gets into Aries for the next 12 years, Saturn gets into Aries for about 3 years straightforward. Then Uranus will be about 7 years going into the sign Gemini. Again, we had that toe in the water type of energy, not enough to really, it was not even an appetizer, never mind the
Right.
full course, which we're getting ready for the appetizer, and then the full course is going to be shoved in our face in 2026.
Yeah.
So I'll talk a little bit about the moons, the Mercury retrogrades, and some of these other big picture items. So we have three Mercury retrogrades in 2026. The first one kicks in February 26th to March 20th. And again, I'll mention these as I go through the months, but where we're going to wait to do a second, there's so much happening in the first 6 months that, like, as I suggested to you, Hilary, it would be better to do
Yeah.
second installment sometime before July for July through December. And I actually think the end of the year is going to be a little less manic than the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, I was looking at this too, and just the energy is so different the first 6 months compared to the second 6 months that it's why, and it is a lot of information too. So it's best just to focus on these first few months.
Yeah, and that being said, we're recording this. It will come out around mid-December, and we have until about the 17th, 18th of January to kind of get ready because
Hmm.
the sparks started flying. So we really have until we have an Aquarian influx coming in January, third week in January. So we have until then to kind of get ready, release old things, take care of business, because then we're going to be accelerated. It really is about acceleration. People talk about that and I don't think they know really what it means, but it just means that time is going to feel like it's moving really fast. We talked about in a podcast that you came on Cosmic Scene about how there's going to be this sense of multiple timelines occurring at once. I mean, we've had
Mm-hmm.
some of that over the years, but I don't think it's going to be like anything we've ever experienced before. And I also do predict a lot of things are going to come into the collective awareness that we've never experienced any like before. And I mean, if I was to venture what, we are seeing a little bit about this, but I think, and it's a whole nother podcast, but I think it's the awareness that we are not alone on this planet, that
100%.
there are
Yeah.
higher consciousness beings. And I think that if we want to view them as friendly, they are. I mean, I really think our consciousness needs to be in a positive place, but I think that because we are behind schedule with the evolution of this planet, and some people even say our whole solar system, that the cavalry is coming and
Mm-hmm.
might be on the way from some higher galactic frequencies. And
Mm-hmm.
what that looks like, I don't think it's going to be the little gray guy. I think it's going to be a shift in consciousness. So what would kick that off would be this Aquarian influx that's coming in January. So let's talk about January.
Yeah. I mean, that new moon on the 18th is holy moly. That ushers in a different wavelength.
Yeah, so we're going to have the full moon. The first full moon of the year is January 3rd, which is, going to be that annual Capricorn, Sun, Cancerian full moon. So again, it's all quite cozy and homey, and we're reeling after the holidays and maybe just having some little integration time and a couple weeks to just breathe and relax into the new year. As far as setting intentions, here we go. We're coming into the new moon cycle. But before we get to the new moon, on January 18th, 2026, we're going to have Venus go into Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
So Venus in Aquarius is a lot of fun. It's a non-traditional way of looking at relationship, and it's really about trying new things out. And maybe your tastes are changing and becoming more eclectic. I actually think the fashion industry will start coming through with some really mod and, kind of interesting Star Trek-y
Yes.
type
Yes, for
fashion.
sure. It's great for design.
Great for design, Venus in Aquarius on January 17th, followed by that new moon in Aquarius, which is actually it's a new moon in Capricorn on the 18th.
Oh,
Yeah, because the Aquarius
I
new
was mistaken.
yeah.
Yes, you're right. It is new moon cap.
So then we're going to have the new moon, but it's not in Aquarius and Capricorn. So again, it's like get rid of the old, bring in the new. It's a new moon, but it's in the late degree of Capricorn. So we're finishing up a cycle. We're ending an era, even though it is a new moon. So it's like take what you want from the old energy and bring it into the new energy. Because on January 19th, the next day after that new moon in Capricorn, we're going to have the sun shift into Aquarius. So it is the latest degree of Cap.
Mm-hmm.
It's the next day, Sun in Aquarius, the 20th, Mercury into Aquarius, which by the way is his exaltation, says this Mercury in Aquarius astrologer.
Yeah.
Mercury loves Aquarius. I think that, it goes without saying that public interest in things like astrology and forward thinking creative endeavors will be definitely the theme of 2026. And different from like the Saturn and Pisces, which was what I call the time of fake shamanism. So the proof is in the pudding in 2026. It really has to
Mm-hmm.
uh, make the distance. And then on 1, 2, 3, the birthday of this astrologer, Mars goes into Aquarius. So that third week, we're going to have a lot of Aquarian action as we end out the Capricornian era. So that for people, if they want to know what to do with that, like think out of the box, try
Right.
new things. It is the middle of the winter on the northern hemisphere, but try to be social. Aquarius is a very social sign, we don't have a Mercury retrograde in January. It is a good time to get new electronics, new computers,
Mm-hmm.
waited to get through the holiday season, really working with all uh, your
Devices and
devices, electronics, upgrading. In all ways, that's Aquarius is about upgrade. And then in that same time period, we're going to have the planet Neptune go into Aries, which is the beginning of a new cycle, which should last about 12 years, which will last about 12 years. So Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So this, again, we had that foot in the Aries fire the end of March through September, and now we're back. And so this is so good for creativity. I think we're going to have a lot of new inventions coming out. I
breakthroughs. Yeah, for
I can't
sure.
wait for those new cars that are going to, not have to rely on gas as much, but no, I'm not talking
Right.
electric. I think we're going to have some new technologies coming up. There's going to be a lot of focus on the environment in 2026. And I can't wait until they make plane travel easier. And I think this is the beginning of that with all that Aquarius. It is an air sign. So we're going to hear a lot about developments that are happening societally, and then these are going to ride for the coming years. So a lot of initiative going on. So there's no retrogrades, and again, the full moon in Cancer, January 3rd, new moon in Capricorn, January 18th. Then we move into the cray month of the year.
Yeah, we were looking at this the other day, and we are going to need that fierce Aries energy that Neptune brings on the 27th as we go into the second month of 2026 for sure. So roll it out for us.
Well, put your seatbelts on. So this will probably be one of the most intense months. Like we were right on because it's an eclipse month, and this year the two eclipse months, and then we had an extra crazy month thrown in were March of 2025, and then the eclipse month of September 2025, and then we had a special cherry on top with November of 2025. Well, my prediction in 2026, there's going to be a lot going on in the collective, a lot of revelations, a lot of crazy energy, whatever that means to you by crazy, but really you'll have to be very grounded because there's a lot
Hmm.
there. And the month starts off with a full moon. So
Yep.
we'll be howling at that full moon on February 1st, 2026. And it's a full moon with the sun in Aquarius and moon in Leo. And Leo rules those in power. So we're going to see some changing of regimes.
Hmm.
It's not the eclipse, but the eclipse is coming in the middle of the month on February 17th, 2026, with the annual solar eclipse. So between the 1st and 17th of February, there's going to be a lot going on, a lot of regime changes around the world, a lot of revelations about those in power. And the cherry on top at the end of February is that we start the Mercury retrograde cycle right sandwiched in between the eclipse cycle, and that Mercury retrograde goes from February 26th to March 20th. But a little bit about that new moon, solar eclipse is always when there's a new moon and the sun and moon are in the same signs, and this happens to be in Aquarius, and it's toward the end of the Aquarian equinox on the 17th. Depending on where you are, I'm kind of using Eastern time zone for some of these. Uh,
Hmm.
that's also what the Llewellyn astrological calendar uses. So there's going to be a lot of things coming up that we need to be aware of. And then Mercury retrograde on the 26th. By then, the sun will be in the sign Pisces. Now, Mercury will be retrograding in the sign
Yeah, I think it's Pisces. It's retrograding.
Pisces. So we're out of the Aquarius energy. Venus would have left on the 10th of February. The other big news of February, which happens right 2 days after that full moon, is that the planet Uranus is going to go direct.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that is a loaded stretch. So February 1st, even the end of January, like the 30th, 31st, and leading into that full moon on the 1st in Leo, and then Uranus goes direct motion in Taurus. So that could be a real bumpy stretch.
Yeah, and I think with Uranus going direct in the third, there's definitely going to be a lot of news going on with the collective. I kind of think at the end of 2025, we have Mars and Venus transiting into Capricorn, and they'll be riding out the early part of January. So there'll definitely be some economic Debbie Downer news probably in
Hmm.
January. And then we'll get more clarity about that in February. But I guess my advice is just be careful not to buy into everything you're hearing out there. There will be, I think, a lot of fear. Uh, but again, everything's up for grabs. This is the interesting thing. The thing about 2025, people are like freaking out. And I said, hey, none of this is really going to stick because it's
Right,
the end of the cycle. This is the playing out of the old energy. We're not seeding the new. The thing about 2026 that people need to know is that we are seeding new energy. But before we seed the new energy, I think we have a little bit of a chaotic um energetic happening in February.
right,
So not to freak out about that or fear about that. I think it's just like things are just being stirred up and then
right,
the dust will settle as we get into even as early as March of 2026 and we'll see how to move forward. So February may be a little bit disruptive for people. It may feel like, and I think there might be some other things going on with air travel too, because a lot of this in early February is is air. And there was also that I think the government shutdown was going until the end of January. So we might be facing some things that are disrupting with our day-to-day life. There could be some power outages. There could be some storms. Again, I'm not saying this in a fear mode. I'm just saying, just be ready and be flexible.
right,
Flexible.
right.
Whatever does happen in February, there'll be there'll be the pick me up. There will be the cleanup crew coming as early as March of 2026 because then the energy shifts a little bit.
Yeah, so speaking of which, we have the full moon lunar eclipse on March 2nd, 3rd, the second eclipse of 2026. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the other big transit though that we forgot to mention with February, another thing to throw into the February manic mix here is that Saturn will go into Aries on the 13th. So just a
Right.
little bit, let me just backtrack. So February full moon on the 1st. On the 3rd, we've got the Uranus going direct. Then we have the new moon, which is also, by the way, Chinese Lunar New Year on the 17th. So it's
Hmm.
a really good time to set intentions, and I do urge you to do that. But then a week later, and then on the 13th, right before the new moon, is the Saturn goes into Aries, and then we have the eclipse cycle start on the 26th. So that's a lot of major transits for 1 month.
Hmm. It is. It is. So the eclipse is on the 17th, and Mercury retrograde happens on the 26th. So it is a very active month. And the corollary to that first eclipse occurring on February 17th on the new moon in Aquarius is March 2nd, 3rd. It depends on where you are in the world. That full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo and Pisces. We want to talk about your thoughts, what your senses are tingling with about that one.
Yeah, so this one on March 3rd, it's the moon is full in Virgo, the sun is in Pisces. It is a total lunar eclipse, which we get a lot of partial ones, so they tend to pack more of a punch. And people need to be aware that it's not just the event of the eclipse, it's the fallout that happens. And usually those after total lunar eclipse are pretty powerful. So that would be the 3 months after, and a bigger broad stroke would be until 6 months, which is the next eclipse cycle that would be happening in August. So this is a big deal. I think because Pisces and Virgo have a connection with health and healing. Well, Virgo certainly does in medicine, and then Pisces is more what we would call energy healing. But Pisces also has a rulership over contagion, things that are
Hmm.
diseases or they spread.
Viruses, right?
Is they go through, they don't regard boundaries, so they can be spread from one place to another. I think we might have some kind of weird thing going on with some kind of disease or illness erupting then around that time, or trying to deal with a situation, a health situation. There could even be in our country some more, situations around ruling medicine and pharmaceuticals and all of that will be a big deal. And it's about the middle degree too of the sign Pisces. So this is not necessarily an ending or a beginning. It's a continuation of something that may have started.
Right.
And an eclipse comes when it's affecting the nodes of the moon. And so we've had the eclipses all in Pisces and Virgo since late 2024, and they're going to end in June of 2026 when they change nodes. And that's a whole nother astrological thing, but it's really about the direction that the collective is taking. So again, I think there's going to be some big health concerns showing up first week in March at that lunar eclipse.
Yeah, that's so true. It's sort of like the swan song, this lunar eclipse in Virgo and Pisces. And what about right after that? We have Jupiter going direct motion on the 11th. There's sort of a cluster of activity that second and third week of March.
Right. So we've got Jupiter going direct. So that's going to feel good because it's going to bring back optimism, expansion, and Jupiter is considered exalted in the sign Cancer, where it will stay now and go forward in Cancer until around the end of June. So this is good. I think we might get some good news because it's post ecliptic by then. It's like
Right.
exactly a week after the eclipse. We might get some good news about mortgages and things to do with buying property and real estate. There may be some good news around that. There may be, like, if we felt the economy was really, really bad back in January and February, March will bring the optimism. And also the other thing people need to be aware of, like things that are going to happen are going to be fast. Like one day it's going to be like, oh no, we're going into a recession. The next week, oh no, we're not. We're
Hmm.
we're gonna there's gonna be this done, and there's gonna be a lot of changing too in the political arena, I feel, in countries all over the world, including the US. Like from day to day or week to week, it's going to be a different scenario or a different issue that we're dealing with, kind of like what we've had, but a little different, because I think we're going to see an unwinding of things that were set into motion in 2025, but then we're going to have new ways of dealing with situations or circumstances.
Hmm.
It may
A
not,
100%.
not be done the traditional way. I'm talking politically and otherwise. So yeah, it's really busy that third week in March. We've got the Jupiter going direct. Then you've got that new moon on the 18th, the day after St. Patrick's Day. And then
Hmm.
we're going to have the sun going into Aries, which marks the vernal equinox, which is always a good time to seed new energies. And I like that it's coming 2 days after the new moon window. So the 18th, 19th, 20th of March, if you haven't had time to kind of set an intention because things have been a little bit unwieldy, that would be a really good time. And it starts the astrological new year too.
Right. And to boot, Messenger Mercury turns direct motion on the 20th. So, right on that vernal equinox and the new moon. So, it is a very potent time to set intentions. And with that, Mercury going direct on March 20th, all planets will be forward motion for a couple months, which is really a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, that will be really good. Usually that happens earlier in the year, like in February, that they go moving direct, but it's a little later this year, but we'll take it, right?
Right.
We'll take it on the equinox, we'll take Mercury going direct, and that's going to be very interesting. Things will move fast because it is the Aries equinox, so we'll have the inner planets all conjuncting Saturn and Neptune at the end of March into April, which will be interesting to see how that plays out. But they're a little bit more spaced out than it is in Aquarius when they all meet up with Pluto in Aquarius the third week of
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a little bit of a different flavor, but it's also letting us get some kind of viewing or vision of what's to come. And that leads us into the month of April when, again, April Fools, it's a Libra full moon.
Da 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 da.
So
Yes.
that will be trying to balance things, all the things that have felt a little chaotic or not knowing if we're coming or going. By that April 1st Libra full moon, we might get things back in balance. And I think also that it's going to sort of get ready for the financial situation to get cleaned up in May. So April
Mm-hmm.
is the full moon, sun in Aries, moon in Libra. So that's also very diplomatic. If there's anything going on internationally, which there certainly could get initiated in February of 2026, we'll probably see some kind of cleaning up of that. And then there's the new moon in Aries on April 17th,
Mm-hmm.
which is, bringing in new hope. Again, we don't have any planets retrograde, so that's really, really good. We've got Pluto going through Aquarius by now. We've got Neptune going through Aries, Saturn in Aries. And
On
there's,
the 26th, do you want
yeah,
to talk about that big
something very
one?
special come up at the end of April on 4-2-6-2-6. We've got Uranus, the great awakener and change maker, going into Gemini. Dun, da, da.
For the next 7 years. Yeah. Talk about fasten your seatbelts, aligning to Pluto and Aquarius.
Yes, and it is going to speed things up. I think that we're going to see a lot of things happening with between the Aquarius and then the Gemini and Aries, a lot of stuff around space travel. And like again, I've been crossing my fingers for years that since Pluto went into Aquarius originally a couple of years ago, like let's get air travel
Yeah.
modernized and easier, and let's clean up all those systems and make it so it could be more seamless because it's been anything but that.
Right. Oh, 100%. Yes. So a relatively calm month in April, and we'll take it after the rock and roll of February and even early March. And so with that, we're into May 2026 and another full moon right on the first. So we have two full moons um, in May. So
It's a
what do you,
once in a blue moon month. It will be a once in a blue moon month.
yes.
So do something you've never done before.
Yes, ride that horse. It's the year of the fire horse in Chinese astrology. And so we're going from the snake in 2025, a very earthbound creature, to giddy up. It's like
Up
that
and
that
drive into
barn door.
and it kicks in on the 17th of February at that new moon, at the new moon eclipse. The horse is going to come through the fire ring and jump into our lives. And those people who are, every 12 years, so people who are 24, 36, 48, 60, turning 60 or 72, it's going to be your year. It's going to be
Hmm.
astrological Chinese year. So yeah, May is going to be an interesting month. It starts with the full moon in Scorpio on May 1st, on May Day. And that moon is traditionally considered very special by the Tibetans. It's called the Wesak moon. And
Hmm.
so it's the time that the Buddha was born, received enlightenment, and died, always on that full moon in his lifetime in Scorpio. So Buddha was a Taurus. And so it has, in our time period, affected financial markets because it's
Hmm.
financial axis in astrology. Taurus is the money we earn and work hard for, and then Scorpio is money that is invested or comes from other sources outside of what we earn, such as spouse's money, partner's money, investments,
Inheritance. Yeah, that's
insurance policy.
very strong.
So there's something financial big that's going to be happening um, during the first 2 weeks of May, I predict something very big. And then what's going to be interesting by the new moon, which is May 16th, 2026, we're going to see something clarified. And around that time, the next day, a couple days later, we're going to have some stabilization with Venus going into Cancer, which is also going to join Jupiter at some point in the coming months. And Mars is going to go to Taurus. So those are kind of secure planets. Those inner planets being a little bit more in secure signs to counter
Right.
all that air and fire. They're in
Right.
Earth.
Very grounding. And Pluto, right on the heels of that first full moon on May 1st, turns retrograde on May 6th. So that brings a halt to all planets being forward, but we don't really feel it. But the fact that it comes on the heels of that full moon, and Pluto rules Scorpio, should be really interesting.
I'm wondering if there'll be some kind of interesting Earth change around that time because we've got Taurus, Scorpio, and then we have Pluto retrograding, and Pluto tends to bring about like things from under the Earth up. So we could
Hmm.
geo magnetic energies arising there in that early May. And yeah, so you're right. So we only have a very short no retro planet period from the vernal equinox on March 21st to May 6th. Usually we get a couple months. We get barely a
About
month.
6 weeks.
Yeah. So that means initiate from like the 21st of March through May 6th. This is a good time for launching things. People always ask me, when should I launch my new business? I mean, all year I think of 2026 is good for that, trying new things and ending the old. But that's a pretty auspicious cycle for really starting new things between the vernal equinox and May 6th. And like you said, Pluto is more about a collective situation. And, a lot of people won't really feel it unless they have planets at those degrees. So,
Right, right.
and it's retrograde for almost half the year anyway. So that's the thing.
Yeah. The outer planets, but it's just very interesting coming on the heels of that full moon. And then the second full moon is the very end of the month, that blue moon.
Yes, on May 31st. So that's the week after Memorial Day in the United States. So that is in Gemini, and that's going to be with the sun in Gemini, and then the full moon will be in Sagittarius. So that's kind of a big picture. There might be something internationally going on at that full moon at the end of May, because Sagittarius rules international affairs. And then we're also going to have, I think that Uranus is going to be a few degrees away from it because if it's the 31st, it's going to be, it's about 10 degrees. And then Uranus will be in like 3 or 4 degrees. Not even, it will be in the very early degrees of Gemini, but still to have both Uranus and a full moon uh,
Hmm.
in Gemini, we haven't had that for 84 years.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, that is really strong stuff. Lot of communication. Um, and now that we don't have any planets in Pisces, that's, challenging the Gemini. It's very clear. Clear communication, a lot of sales and marketing going on.
Yeah.
And then June, it's pretty quiet in June until the end of the month.
Yeah, so June, because they don't, there, we had that May 31st full moon. There's no full moon till the end of June, but right smack in the middle on Flag Day, June 14th, is the Gemini new moon. And then June 29th is the full moon in Capricorn. But the cherry on top in between all that is the second Mercury retrograde cycle. And that goes from June 29th through July 23rd. So I think that one's going to be a bit of a whammy for some reason. And it's right in the middle of like summer travel season when that Mercury retrograde, it actually goes retrograde on the day of the full moon.
And Mars goes into Gemini. There's a lot of activity on the 29th and the 30th. It's just loaded. So as people are heading out for July 4th weekend, whether you're flying or driving, that could be, a little tricky. Yeah, you may want to just plan plenty of time. Give yourself plenty of space with that full moon on June 29th in Capricorn, just as Mercury, messenger Mercury, the communication planet, goes retrograde same day, and Mars goes into Gemini, the sign that Mercury rules. So it is loaded. And then let's finish up with some happy news because Jupiter goes into Leo, where it loves being in Cancer. It's exalted, as you pointed out, but it shines pretty nicely in Leo.
Right. So that's a trifecta of days, the 28th, Mars and Gemini, then the full moon on the 29th with Mercury retrograde. And then we have the 30th with Jupiter and Leo. So, and that's the end of the first half of 2026. So it's going to end with kind of a bang. And Jupiter and Leo just is all about like whatever the intensity has been leading up to that point. It's like, okay, let's have some fun now. But then the Jupiter is going to be in the mix with the fire and air in early degrees. So
Right.
it will be trining Neptune and Saturn in August. It will also be in July and August. It will also be harmonizing with, well, opposing Pluto in Aquarius, and then it will be in the mix with Uranus in Gemini. So that's, again, it's all about acceleration. So I think, I mean, the key takeaway for those 6 first months is that be very grounded, be very in your body. I mean, if you've never had a massage or any kind of body focus, this is the year to do it.
Seriously, you really want to be prepared because we have liftoff and we are on the launch pad in 2026. So, as much as you can take the end of December, beginning of January to really take care of yourself, especially with Jupiter, the planet of abundance and prosperity and expansion, loving, thriving, being in the sign of Cancer, the crab, which is nurturing and nourishing and self care. You really want to sink into that. My guest has been the exceptional astrologer Jill Jardine. You can find all her information on her website, Jill Jardine, Jill, Jardine, Jardine, astrology.com. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jill. It's so wonderful to have you here to go over the abundance of activity that we're about to walk into.
London
Uh,
Astro Activities. Triple
yes.
M. Thank you so much for having me, Hilary. It's always so much fun when we do a podcast together because I think we have a compendium of astrological knowledge we get to share with everybody.
For sure. I would love for my listeners also, while they're checking you out on your website, your podcast as well, Cosmic Scene with Jill Jardine. And don't forget, our fellow listeners, we'd love to have you join the Three Wise Women community. We are three veteran metaphysical practitioners offering connection and conversation to explore all of your wildest woo questions. Join us the first Tuesday of each month at 6 p.m. Eastern via Zoom. It's only $10 monthly or $110 per year. To register, please visit my website, hilaryharley.com. And to learn more about my work or to book a session with me, please visit hilaryharley.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I thank you so much for listening today. Please join me again in 2 weeks when I will bring you the astrology forecast for January 2026. I wish you many blessings as you journey forward.